Just to know.
Are we rolling?
Yes, we're back now.
What episode are we in?
13.
Episode 13 of the Art of Hunting podcast. I never remember the episodes. I'll need to write that down beforehand. But we just, we wrapped up a podcast like 15, 20 minutes ago with my mom. And it's super cool. Lots of good nuggets in there. And what I want to start doing is some special episodes where we have a guest on called Rough Sketches, where, when I start a painting, there's always a rough sketch portion of it. Initial stage is starting out, and I think that a lot of people have a lot of brands and people have a cool story about their early days or a place in their career where they didn't have all the details together and they were just working through it as they go. And there's some really cool stories out there, but she's an OG for sure.
She's goals. That's life goals right
life
there.
Goals.
That's life goals.
She talks about, she was one of 5 kids. She was raised by a single mom. And so her life has literally been like bootstrapping it, figuring out as you go, handling things from day one.
She's an OG problem solver.
She's an OG problem solver and handled some really big things in her career as a postmaster, as a small town postmaster. She's done a lot of cool stuff.
She's talking about being in court in my age,
in
like
court.
Testifying against stuff. And I'm just like, dang, you have seen things.
Yeah. She was, and when you grow up, and she was the oldest, daughter.
I was wondering where she was in the
Pretty sure she's
line.
The second oldest of 5, but the oldest daughter.
Okay.
So she absolutely had to do a lot of like mothering, cleaning and cooking and making sure the little sister gets here and there. She had to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where she gets a lot of it. A lot of times they just didn't have a choice. They had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so it's not like she chose to do that. She just had to out of necessity.
That's some cool life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wasn't cool at first, but there's some.
Was not cool in real time.
Yeah. IRT. That's their new
but
thing.
cool now. But one of the things we're going to talk about today is buying land. And my mom and dad have some really cool stories about buying land. They bought the first 56 acres off my grandma and grandpa. That had the house that we grew up in, and then the portion that was in front of their house between them and the paved road was like another 60 maybe, and they bought that and then sold off part of the timber to put a down payment on their house. And as young farmers just starting out, they had to like make some moves and take some risk and try to piece things together to get their first piece of property bought.
Yeah.
A lot of people are buying hunting land now, and guys in my position want to buy hunting land. And so they're like trying to, get their affairs in order to buy a piece of hunting land to go hunt on. Well, they were buying it to start a farm to raise their kids on, so there's a little bit more, I don't want to say risk, but there's a little bit more necessity out of how they've bought land.
Their livelihood was there.
And they saw, Mom didn't really touch on it, but back in the early 80s, a lot of farmers went under because land prices were going up, interest rates were going up, and a lot of people overextended themselves and they ended up going bankrupt. So
Gotcha. So I know nothing about this topic.
That's awesome. You can ask.
So I'm going to be the
questions.
The questions of, I would love to have land.
Yeah.
Whether it's to hunt on or for my fiance, or if it's so I can have some horses one day. Like, it's just stuff. I know nothing about it.
You need to have horses one day.
As a kid, yes.
Yeah.
Y'all don't understand. I have the biggest horse girl energy that you will ever meet. I work at a barn on the weekends just so I can be around the horses, and they're just like big dogs. Like, they can kill you, but they're such cool animals. So yeah, I have always wanted a horse. I used to beg my parents for horses when I was a kid, and they were like, "We don't have any money. No, you cannot have a horse," because the horse industry is crazy expensive.
It's nuts.
It's crazy expensive.
We had a horse named Butterscotch. My grandpa did when I was growing up, and we had a tame cow named Tammy that we could ride. She'd come up there and she'd eat out of the trough, and you'd be able to sit on her back and walk around right on her back.
What color was she?
She was she was white with black spots.
Like a dairy cow?
Yeah. But the Butterscotch was like literally the color of like a Werther's Original. That's how she got her name. Was it like a
Palomino?
I have no idea. I was too young to really even know anything about it. And it was just when I was a little kid too. I mean,
I'll ask your mom.
Yeah, ask my mom. She would know. She would know. But, you know, we grew up, we had 120 acres growing up. My dad bought another 30-some in college when I was in college, or right out of college. But, you know, I remember, like, I just had the itch to buy land. I can remember when I was first working at the Turkey Federation, I was not making any money at all. I was broke. I went through a divorce and, like, was literally $0 in my bank account. And there was some stuff that had come up for sale, and I would have done anything to be able to buy it, but I just was not in a position to do anything. But, you know, personally, I've gone from growing up on a family farm and being the beneficiary of that to being completely broke and hunting public land in a state that I didn't grow up in, to gaining permission from some buddies, to eventually having some leases, and now buying and owning my own. So I feel like I do have a pretty unique perspective, and that I have like been a part of that whole process. Like every phase of the game, I've been a part of, except for buying big pieces of land, and agricultural land. So
how big is your farm in Illinois that you own?
It's a 40-acre piece.
Okay.
And then my buddy Shay and I formed a partnership a couple years ago. And we got into it with the idea of buying and selling and moving up. And we have bought 2 pieces together, sold one of them when we currently own a 60-acre piece.
Okay.
So I have a 40-acre piece, own a 60-acre piece with Shay, and then Kim and I have 35 acres here in Boone up the road.
Are you using that as the 35 up here as like a spot?
That's got Christmas trees on it.
Okay.
So we did a partnership with a Christmas tree farmer, and he's putting Christmas trees on that. The stuff in Illinois, though, it has very little tillable on it. Mm-hmm. And so the tillable ground, it produces row crops. So it's going to produce income, so it's priced higher than just the straight timber. So
okay. I get this now.
Yep. Okay. So in farm country, when I was growing up, the farmers literally called the timber shit ground. Like it had no value to them because a lot of that was poor timber soil. It's not great soil to grow on. If you wanted to, you could like clear the timber off of it, but it's still not great soil. It's going to take a long time for it to get good. So the timber didn't have a lot of value to them. It's like, yeah, you heard my mom talking earlier, back in the day, they didn't have hog confinements. So they'd put these little shacks, in the timber and raise hogs there, or they'd have cows kind of in and out of the timber. But for the most part, it was worthless to them. Then in those days, they would almost give it away. Like you could pay them pennies and they'd give it to you. But then when deer hunting got popular and recreational ground got popular, these states that have bigger deer, the value for that timber went up, because now to a deer hunter, to a guy like myself that's not relying on the row crops for income, the timber is what I want, because that's where I can deer hunt. That's where all the deer are. And so you've seen an appreciation of both. As commodity prices, as grain prices go up, the agriculture goes up. And then as deer hunting and rec ground has gotten more popular, to see those prices go up.
Gotcha.
So it's all expensive right now.
Gotcha.
And like Shay and I had the idea of keeping buying and moving up, but then COVID hit, prices went crazy, and we just haven't bought anything in a few years.
COVID ruined everything.
Yep,
They
crazy.
Just did. They ruined everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is a food plot?
What is a food plot?
Give me this definition. I have heard this in everything, and I don't know what that means. All I think of is I don't know if it's a farmer, a hunter, or both, plotting food on the ground for the animals to come.
That's pretty much it.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right page.
So a food plot, again, in ag country where we're at, typically you have a lot of agriculture, row crops mixed in with the timber. Like you're hunting little ditches and draws of timber, maybe a 40-acre square, some timbered ridges and stuff. But within a half mile, there's food. There's an agricultural field. And so a lot of those deer in the fall, they will key in on food sources like corn, beans, wheat, winter wheat as their food source. So it's an attractant. It's a way where somebody, if they have a timbered section, they can clear out a 1-acre food plot and attract game in a place where they can hunt if they don't have access to an ag field. It's also a lot of times like when deer get up for the evening, like to go feed, they'll hit a food plot that's close before they filter out to a larger ag field. So it's really it's a really good evening spot to shoot a deer with a bow is the best thing. And turkeys too. Like turkeys will come and strut in a food plot because it's an open ground. But a lot of your big ag hunters, if you own a big ag field, your chances are you're not putting in a food plot. You're not sacrificing that ag land to put in a food plot. You're going to put that in a timbered area where nothing else is growing anyway. Let's put a food plot to attract deer there.
Do you have any food plots?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so I've got a 1-acre food plot on my 40-acre piece, and then I think we have two or three that's probably like 2 acres total on the 60.
So would you I'm trying to get this straight. So if you put corn there or beans, would you use those, or are you sacrificing those?
You're
for
literally
the deer?
giving it up for the deer.
Okay.
And down here, I've got some clover food plots behind the house here and on our 35 acres because really I want a turkey hunt on it, and I like the idea. I like putting in that extra work. But in the mountains of North Carolina, everybody baits. So your food plot comes in a bag of yellow gold corn.
My grandpa uses that.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the way that a lot of states that can bait, that's the way they do it. Instead of planting a food plot, you're going to pour out corn on the ground.
Yeah.
A lot of your other states where baiting is illegal, you'll put in a food plot as you're attracting it there. But in those little food plots, it's rare to put in like corn and soybeans and wheat. You want to give them something a little different because if they have a 70-acre cornfield right here, you're not going to plant corn in a little food plot in the woods because chances are it's not going to produce as well, but they're going to go eat corn somewhere else anyway.
I gotcha. I was going to ask.
I like clover for my food plots because a lot of our hunting stuff is in Illinois. That's 800 miles away, and you typically want to plant like your brassicas and stuff like that in August. That way they have time to grow and mature and be palatable to the deer during hunting season. But clover's kind of low maintenance. You can spray it, fertilize it, mow it in late August, and you're pretty well good there.
Gotcha. Would food plots not be considered baiting too?
Not really. You're kind of getting into a gray area that people like to argue on social media about.
Well, let's talk about it. I'm just like...
And it's funny because I've lived in different areas of the country where baiting is illegal, where it's legal. If you go back to Illinois and you tell people like, yeah, in North Carolina, you dump a bag of corn out on the ground and hunt over that. They're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you do that? That's stupid. You tell people down here, yeah, we did man drives growing up where we pushed deer out of ditches and shot them running with shotguns. And they're like, why would you ever do that? You know, like everybody is used to everybody's used to what they grew up with as like the way to do it, the right way to do it. And so there's kind of a cultural deal there, but there are the definition of baiting from what I really gather and understand is if it's an agricultural practice, then you can do it and it's not considered baiting. So for example, but some of these things to me are kind of ridiculous. Like you can plant 3 acres of corn in Illinois and then right before deer season, go mow it over with a bush hog, and there's corn laying on the ground everywhere. And that's considered an agricultural practice, even though any farmer with a brain is not going to mow over his corn. It'll just leave it on the ground. But you can't dump a bag of corn. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you have to plant it, grow it, and then you can put it on the ground versus buying it at Tractor Supply up the road. So really you get into some of those things like, I mean, yeah, it's harder to do a food plot, but it kind of is baiting. Yeah. It's an agricultural way to bait versus buying it in a bag. Yeah. And so that's the argument against, baiting is like, well, I had to grow this and it could fail and I have to maintain it. It's an agricultural practice. I didn't just go take a shortcut and buy it in a bag.
I got you.
What else you want to talk about?
I was hearing that on some other stuff because I'm trying to research and do my homework. And I was like, I feel like I know what this means, but I don't know exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I was just wondering what a food plot was and how that worked. And if it was, because I was like, isn't that still kind of considered baiting?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of is. It's a heck of a lot harder than just buying
corn
in the bag. But man, corn is stinking expensive. Like when commodities went up the past couple years during COVID, I mean, I think corn was like $15 for a 40-pound bag at Tractor. I mean, that's expensive if you want to do it on a large scale because you get a place with a high deer density, you can put out $30 of corn and it's gone overnight.
Yeah. That's what's happening to my grandfather. Yeah. Like he's spending so much money on corn, and my grandma, they're doing the Dave Ramsey plan, and so my grandma's like, Donnie, you need to stop doing that. You can't go to Tractor Supply and buy corn. It's too expensive. Because me and my dad were talking about that too. Like it's crazy how expensive that stuff is now. So I can't even imagine like doing that because you lose it overnight. Because they have a ton of deer behind their house on the hill, and that's where he usually hunts. But yeah,
one of my pet peeves about the hunting industry. We could probably do an entire podcast on my pet peeves about the hunting industry. But you see a lot of people who talk about, I hunt to feed my family, and that's something we do here. Like, I love it. I love teaching Rhett. Like, Rhett loves grinding deer up. He's 6, and he loves processing game. And I am committed. I'm like publicly announcing and holding myself accountable that I'm going to step my game up on learning to process game for him and really getting into it. But you see people like, I went and shot this buck to feed my family. And it's like, dude, if you actually add up the amount of money that we spend to quote unquote feed our family, you could absolutely do it cheaper at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it because we love it. We do it because we were raised doing it. It's part of who we are. We always need to be proud of that. But a lot of people will, just say that they're doing it to feed their family when it's like, dude, we're not homesteaders, shooting a deer to put meat on the table. Yeah. That's a bonus. That's a perk. That's awesome. We do it. I love it, but it's cheaper to not do it if you really get down to it.
Like my grandfather I think he shot one buck this year, and he took it to get processed somewhere in Lenore. Yeah. It's like that really awesome. They do the beef too. Yep. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't remember who it is.
I don't know who specifically, but there's a lot of processors that do that.
I think it's down in Lenore. Yeah. But he got them made into like burger patties, and that was, I don't remember how much he said that was, but it was expensive.
Oh yeah.
But did he give me any? No. But yeah, I was like, I can't imagine. But the Meachums that we go to church with, Jamie, he does his on his own. Yeah. So I'm telling Cole he needs to get with him if he really wants to get into deer hunting.
And they mix all kinds of stuff with it: beef fat, pork fat, all that.
Yeah, and talk to Jamie and be like, learn how to process your deer so we can have some meat in the freezer.
But buying land and shooting deer off of it is not the cheapest alternative.
No. No.
If putting food on the table is your number one goal, you're going about it all wrong.
Yeah.
Just go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandpa used to take his, because he would shoot multiple deer, whether it was a doe or several bucks, I don't know. He would take it to Hunters for the Hungry.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
and
it is cool.
Thought that was a really cool way to not just be like, oh yeah, like I'm just shooting it to kill it kind of thing. So
there's they have a lot of that in states with a lot of non-resident hunters, and I've done that myself. Like you go up, you shoot a deer. A lot of times there's a lot of restrictions in bringing it back across state lines with CWD and some of the stuff like that. But a lot of times you can take your deer to a processor, pay the processing fees, and they will process it and donate the meat to one of those programs.
Yeah.
Because you can't sell it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool because, like, you know, and a lot of non-resident hunters, if you can afford the non-resident deer tag and a lease or an outfitter or buying your own land, you have the money to, you know, pay for the processing and donate the meat.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of guys they might be on a tight schedule. They're only in town for 3 or 4 days. Then they got to catch a flight, you know, and you don't want it to go to waste. But no, those are good ways to do it. Help some people out.
So tell me about the difference, or even like the price, how the process to lease land.
Land.
Yeah, like if do you lease it for a year? Do you only lease it for like a day? How much does that cost?
I mean, it's really, there's a lot of ways to do it, really. Okay. So when I was growing up, you know, there weren't really any non-resident hunters in Illinois. And then when people started recognizing the value of deer hunting and seeing that people from out of state will come in and pay you to hunt on your land, that changed everything. Because those farmers saw, hey, I've got like, you know, 100 acres that I own here that's not paying me that I can't farm. If I can make money on that, that changes the game of everything, you know, because those guys have to pay for it too. So they started leasing ground out, and the original people were outfitters. So outfitters would come in and pay the landowner to lease it. The landowner doesn't allow anybody else to hunt on it. And then those outfitters would go and guide people from out of state. They'd come in, you know, here's your stands, here's your blinds, here's your deal. And those non-resident hunters would pay the outfitter, and then the outfitter would pay the landowner. And it's kind of like free money for a landowner. It's something that in the 70s there wasn't a market for, and today there's a big time market for it. So it doesn't really cost anything to the landowner. They have it anyway. And the lease basically is kind of a competition. Like in Western Illinois, I had buddies that outfit, and what they would do is they'd do a sealed bid. So they'd put a section of ground up, the landowner would, and the outfitters would give their best price in an envelope, in a sealed envelope, and whoever paid the most leased the land. Well, that has a tendency to, over time, increase the amount of lease payments. And I think I was talking to some landowners, some of the stuff around us was going for $40-50 an acre. And that's pretty stout. That's real stout. If you're literally paying to deer hunt. So again, going back to like, I do this to feed my family. You're not leasing ground to kill deer to feed your family. You know, it's recreation. It's you're doing it out of passion, out of love for deer hunting. But you know, it's gotten really expensive over the past few years. And again, it depends on the resource. So states that have big deer are going to command a higher price than any of that. Same thing with the price of land. States that have bigger deer are going to have your higher land prices.
Gotcha.
But when I bought my first one, you know, again, I was flat broke starting out. Kim and I started doing well. We made some smart financial decisions. And I was in Illinois, and I was just kind of kicking tires on the idea of buying a piece. And we were riding around with my buddy Dave and Ed, and they had a 40-acre piece up for sale. They called the Weed Patch, and there were big deer on it, but it was kind of rough. There were a lot of walnuts in there, so there was some timber value. And they're like, yeah, they wanted to sell this place. I think it's going to go up for auction. And I was like, dang, I wish I'd have known. I was looking to buy it. Well, I could have bought that place for $1,800 an acre, which now, literally, that was like 2018. 5 years later, you could easily sell that for $5,000 an acre. It would have, you could have cut the walnuts off of it, almost paid for the place, and it triple in value in 5 years. But that was COVID. That's how it was. And so I went ahead and they had already committed to auctioning it off. And I think the auction price went for like $2,800, which I thought was crazy at the time. And now it's double that. So.
Wow.
Land prices have gone up just like a lot of housing stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
But from what I learned there is that, like, there are times when stuff comes up for sale and it's like, you've got to move quick. Like, you got to be ready to go. You can't kick tires in this kind of a market. And so that's when I've told the story of buying the farm with Kim. That's when I started having the conversation with Kim, like, hey, I'd really love to have some land, to hunt on, to buy first as an investment, but also to hunt on. And, I started looking with Tyler Sellens, my buddy that's an agent. I started looking at Hancock County, where my parents are from, because I could go stay with them, bring grandkids home. They'd love that. We had access to equipment and stuff. And so that's when that one farm came up. And for people that haven't heard that story, a farm basically came up and Tyler was like, man, I'm going to take this to listing today. I've got it listed. I haven't put it on the website yet, but I think this is what you're looking for. And we had looked at 4 or 5 farms already, like drove around them on a side-by-side. I was like, yeah, let's put an offer in. And we put an offer in and they got accepted. And then I had to go to Kim and say, hey, we bought a farm today.
Didn't you have Rhett in the bathtub or something?
Yeah. And again, we had talked about all this stuff. She had seen the numbers and everything. But I went ahead and bought it, and we had Rhett in the bathtub that night. And we're at that phase of, like, new parents where you still give the kids a bath together and talk about things. Yeah. And, oh, he's so cute. And now it's like, you go that direction, you get in a shower, you need to be brushed your teeth in the bed in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But at that time, you're like, sponging their forehead and carefully washing them off.
What an angel.
And now it's like, let me smell your hair. Yeah. You're good. You don't need a bath tonight. But we were in that phase, and we're giving Rhett a bath, and he's, doing cute stuff. He was he was like 8 months old, something like that. And I was like, yeah, I got some news, babe. She's like, what's that? I was like, we bought a farm today. And she's like, we bought a what?
Yeah.
It's like, we bought a farm. You remember? We've been talking about this for months now.
Knowing Kim, she doesn't miss any details. So, like, the fact that you got that by her, I'm like, oh.
Well, Kim is like, in our relationship, I move big rocks and she moves little rocks. Like, I handle the big stuff and she handles little stuff. So, like, literally, her eyes will glaze over when we start talking about, like, buying farms and doing big things like that. But if the little details are what she pays attention to.
Yeah. So when you got the field up here for, like, the Christmas trees, I know those are, like, big up here. They, like, make there's a ton of Christmas tree farmers up here, and that's the thing. Is that kind of like what would you compare that to, like, in Illinois? Like corn or wheat or something?
Yeah, it's way different. So it's an agricultural practice for sure. But, here in the mountains, like, you can either run cows or have Christmas trees on it. You can't really do anything else. In South Carolina, it was planted pines, peach orchards. So you could plant something in longleaf pines or loblolly pines. Longleaves, I think, take longer to grow. But, in 15, 20 years, you would have a return on that. Christmas trees, I think we're probably looking at 8 years before we cut them and see any money. So for 8 years, you're putting money into those things. And we pay the inputs and the seedlings, and the farmer handles the labor on it, and then we split the sale price on it, and that's how that works. But in the Midwest, that's essentially like sharecropping, sort of. In the Midwest, what we did is farmers will lease your ground from you. They have a set price, and a lot of times that price is determined on the commodity prices and the yields. So really good black dirt in an era where commodity prices, like the price of corn and beans, is high, that farmers can afford to pay you more to lease your land. They used to sharecrop it where the landowner would pay half the seed bill and fertilizer bill. The farmer would do the same, and then they split the profits. But it's just like anything there's risk in that. Yeah. So if you have a drought, well, all of you paid in your money and you didn't see any return. You lost money. With a lease, it's riskier on the farmer. It's more risk and reward for the farmer, because if say they pay $200 an acre, well, they're going to pay $200 an acre to lease that. If they have a bumper crop, they make good money. If there's a drought and they get wiped out and don't have insurance, they take it on the chin. So, it's kind of fascinating to me as I've gotten older, like the financial markets and how you farm and where you invest your money. I mean, it's a business.
Yeah.
Like farmers are the original entrepreneurs. And they have to play the markets. They have to look at the futures markets. The good ones do. It's not just, you have to be good enough to grow and pay attention and improve your processes as a farmer, but you also have to buy equipment and pay attention to markets and not bite off more than you can chew. So like, for example, when in the 80s, and obviously I don't know all the details of that, but like when land got expensive, leases were getting expensive, farmers were overpaying for stuff, and then commodity prices drop or land values drop, a lot of farmers are hung out to dry if they bought too much off.
Would you say like the Christmas trees would be like a good habitat for deer, or is that just kind of like just a thing?
Not really. I needed to do that to pay for the land.
I see.
And I mean, it's okay, but it was a hayfield before, and so hayfield, Christmas trees, neither one of them are great. On all the other places that we've bought, though, I've done literally everything for wildlife habitat. Like, that is number one on my list. We talked about this in an earlier episode, but we lucked out, and there was a bunch of black walnuts on there. There was more than I thought there was. So we did a select cut harvest on just the walnuts. And I told the forester there, I was like, look, man, I want the health of the timber number one. Like, I'm not going to rape and pillage this place. We don't need the money that bad. Like, I want it done right. I want it done clean. Let's take these, but I want to keep future timber values in mind. Where if you do what they call high grading, where you take only the good trees and leave the crap, well, you're filled with a property full of crap.
Right.
You're better off to clear cut and then plant good species and then let those grow from there. Gotcha. But we only took the walnuts, and we left a lot of them on there on the place. But to the point, me and my dad always have these like kind of funny arguments and conversations about, like, he's a farmer. He bought land and he had to make a profit off of and do row crops. And I buy land and I'll lose money on it, like, I'll pump money into it to have better wildlife habitat. Where if he's going to put money in, he's got to see crops off of it. So we always kind of have that funny banter back and forth.
I gotcha. I bet he's like, look at that.
Yeah. Well, I always joke around and I'm like, old man, when you pass, I'm gonna have the Boy Scouts out for Arbor Day, and we're gonna plant trees in this cornfield.
Gosh, I bet that rubs him the wrong way.
And then he's like, "Why don't you let me get at that piece of land with a dozer, and I'll have a cornfield out of that whole thing."
Oh, that's funny.
But no, it's funny. But it was really kind of in my blood, the land game, and I'm really out of the market right now unless something really good would come up, just because we've invested so much back in the business. But it's cool. It changes your perspective on a lot of stuff.
Zach's telling me to ask your dad's go-to box blind.
He hunts out of bank. Well, he hunts out of whatever I buy him.
Yeah.
That's what he does. But no, we bought him a Banks a couple years ago, and Dad, Dad is an old school farmer, and so his hearing isn't great because he's been around machinery his whole life. All those farmers are, and he gets cold easy. I get cold easy too. And we bought him a Banks a few years ago, and it's really allowed him to hunt a lot more than he would and take grandkids and stuff like that, which is cool. So
what's a Banks?
A Banks, it's a type of a blind.
Okay.
So it's I think they're one piece. It's like a mold. They're like insulated, soundproof, scent-proof, windproof, everything proof. And you just have windows, and like when a deer comes in, you open the windows up and shoot out of them.
It sounds like what my grandfather has.
He would love it.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to all of them. It allows you to hunt in really bad weather, to take kids and stuff. There's a lot of times I just like being outside and kind of feeling the wind on my face, and I like being able to hear. If like a twig snaps 20 yards behind me, I like being able to hear it. And in a blind, you're not going to know that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to know that deer's coming. So there's pros and cons to it. Well, and one thing that I've learned over the years, and as you get older, your parents get smarter, you get more mature, like you learn some things. But I know, like when I was younger, I'd be like, Dad, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to have this in CRP and plant these food plots. But at the end of the day, it's not my damn property. I didn't bust my tail to pay for it back in the day. And you've heard, like in that podcast, you heard some of the stories my mom says, like they had to scratch
with
and
the
claw
$5,000
to
a
get
year.
it together.
He's like,
and then I'm some young 26-year-old punk telling him what to do with it.
Yeah, it's like, all right.
It's like, and as I've bought land, I've learned that too. It's like, hey, you don't pay the freaking taxes on it. I do. Yeah. I do what I want on that place, Yeah. So, and you start, and he would tell me that too. He's like, you don't own it. Yeah. And he's right, But yeah, I've learned a lot, and I've matured growing up, and you appreciate it more. Mm-hmm. You appreciate the hard work and sacrifice that they made to get their property in the first place. And again, it's not mine, it's theirs. Yeah. They just let me hunt on it for a while. Yeah. And the same thing with mine. I love having other people come and hunt on places that I bought. Like Coy killed his first turkey out here at this field up the road. And it's like, dude, that's the ultimate high for me, is to like take care of a place and steward it and manage it and watch a kid shoot his first turkey on a place that I own. That's awesome to me. So
you gonna let me shoot mine?
Come on. Serious, Mad Dog. We'll get you a turkey.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
What about a park? I do want a deer hunt. Every time I've gone, I've never seen anything ever, and it kills me.
Yeah. Only you, though. Your fiance is off limits.
That's fine, because he'd steal my freaking deer. He'd steal it. Yeah, my grandfather had the one time I saw anything, there were 3 does, and we went across the river. We hiked. We went across the river from their house, and he had set up a little blind, like a ground blind. And my grandfather also, he just wants to go deer hunting. So like, it was like bow season. Yeah. So he bought a crossbow so he could use it, so it could be considered a bow. Yep. So he's never bow hunted in his, like real bow hunted in his life. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm terrified of guns. I don't
Would you bow hunt?
I would bow hunt. Yeah. I would like to.
Does Cole bow hunt?
He wants to get into it.
Okay.
Like, that's, Cole, don't listen to this episode.
Yeah.
It might be a Christmas gift.
Oh, there we go.
I just need pointers on what to get him, because he wants to get into it. But anyway, we went across the river, and we're hiking to the little ground blind, and we're walking, and we see 3 does. And I don't remember really how far they were, and the wind wasn't really amazing that day, and we got to the ground blind. I don't know how we did without them moving. I don't know how we did. I don't remember if we like covered our scent, or we must have, but I really don't know. But we sit in the ground blind, and Papa's like, okay, I got I got the crossbow ready for you. They're going to come this way, and you're just going to get your first doe today because I don't think we're going to see a buck. And I was like, okay. And there were some big does. Yeah. Like there were some old ones.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's usually when he'll shoot a doe as if they're really old.
Yeah.
And they were coming right to us, and then they stopped, and they caught our scent and snorted and just ran off into the woods. And that's the only time I have ever seen a deer on a deer hunt. I've went 3 times, and every time I go, I don't see anything.
We'll have to set you guys up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a buddy stand in on that place for me and Rhett. You and Cole can go in there.
Yeah. He would love that.
Yeah.
He'd be like, really? But he'll steal my deer.
Yeah.
He'll steal it.
Yeah.
He'll be like, you can't make this shot.
Not if he doesn't have a weapon.
Yeah, you can't make this shot. Give me that. That I can see it now. Love you, babe, but that you would do that.
Yeah. Well, I've got some stuff set up for me and Rhett.
Yeah.
We'll have to send you guys in there.
I want to go. I want a deer really bad. I've never been able to shoot one.
Mm-hmm. Owning land has been a really cool thing for me. I feel like, and it's a thing that a lot of people want to do. It changes your perspective on everything. You tend to think more long term. You're willing to invest more, and you tend to think long term about your kids and them being able to enjoy it down the road. So that's been a pretty cool part of my journey as a hunter, as a dad, all that. So
I think it's awesome that you can have your farms out there and you can go back and spend time with your parents and stuff too. I think that's a cool connection. That's
one reason we bought up there. It's really an excuse to go see mom and dad and bring the kids to when we go work.
Yeah.
Because we'll go up there and work once or twice throughout the year and then come up and deer hunt it. So Yep.
All right. Well, next week we'll announce our giveaway.
Yep.
Winner.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's right. We have that here. So again, go sign up. RyanKirby.com/giveaway. I'll try to get the glare out of that there. But we're giving away a framed Flyways of North America poster. We don't offer these framed on the website, but we had some frames and some plexi around the warehouse, so we got this framed up. And go to RyanKirby.com/giveaway and sign up, and you can be entered to win. So we appreciate it, and thank you guys for being here. And be sure to check out the episode with my mom. That was a good one.
Poster fell over. I was like, oh, it's going to break. Okay, bye.
So, see you guys.